All right, welcome back, everybody. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. You know that saying? Yeah, we all do. It's from George Orwell's Animal Farm. He once wrote that, revealing our vices as humankind. The inconsistencies in outrage and media coverage of human rights violations elsewhere in the world, particularly the global West and Africa, are wide and blatant in the face of the Kenyan Garissa massacre. Southern African Liaison Office human rights activist Litlhare Rabele joins us in studio to discuss this matter a little bit further. It's good to have you in studio. Nice to see you again.
It's good to be back, Leon. Thank you.
So a campaign was started in Kenya on social networks. I mean, the hashtag was hashtag 147, not just a number, and hashtag they have names, to humanize the story of these victims and just to show that they're not just faces and numbers that have died. These are real people. What do you think campaigns like this actually achieve?
I think, Leon, it's very important that campaigns are carried out to mobilize support and show solidarity and to call upon leaders both locally and internationally to act more to deal with some of the challenges that we have, like the terrorist attacks. But unfortunately, as you were saying, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. We saw recently, in the recent past, when there were the attacks in France, there was a huge campaign called Je suis Charlie,
yes,
which all of us, the whole world, took up and supported the campaign to say we cannot allow this to happen. And if you remember well, this was an editorial team that was alleged to have drawn an offensive picture, and that was a global campaign, and it attracted a lot of support to show that this kind of things cannot be tolerated. But when it comes to Africa, 148 people are killed.
Yeah.
At a university. They didn't do anything offensive. But unfortunately, we don't see much of campaigns globally, nationally, or even in the continent, such as here in South Africa. Last week, we had President Mugabe, the chairperson of the African Union Commission. We didn't do much as civil society, as academia, as the African diaspora. And I think it's very important that we do these campaigns to show solidarity and to call upon leaders to act upon these challenges.
Yeah, you know, you kind of look at these incidences, and then you look at other incidences. Like, for instance, I mean, you bring to mind things like Senzomiyiwe's death, River Steenkamp's death, Colin Shabani, our late minister's death. These are very prominent deaths, and they get given so much attention, and the individual gets attention, and there's outrage about the circumstances around their death, and so many questions are asked, and you know, we beg for answers, and but yet on a daily basis this is happening all around us. I suppose it leads to that conclusion that some lives are more important than others. Is that true or not really?
Unfortunately, it looks to be true in our country and elsewhere in the continent and globally. And when I take it back to the Kenyan situation, we also have to look at the role of the international community, international institutions that, such as the UN and the UN Security Council. They're very slow to act, to react, and to take measures to say, let us increase the efforts in the fight against these terrorist attacks. And again, Leon, I think at this point we also need to just take a moment and say tomorrow on the 14th is going to be a year since the 200 girls in Nigeria have been gone. But there's not much attention. Brings it back to say some lives seems to be more important than the others.
Yeah.
And honestly, our African leaders cannot allow a situation like this to continue in the continent.
They certainly can't, and you're 100% right. But how can we endorse this collective awareness of the significance of life, irrespective of your color, your creed, your religious stance? What do we have to do?
I think it's about working together, the media, civil society, communities, and the academia, to raise awareness and to call our governments to account. And they need to know, the governments need to know that we voted for them, we elected them to govern and to make some of the decisions that would really be to show that they care about human rights and that everybody has equal rights in any country and in the continent. Yeah. So it's about calling on our governments, putting them under a lot of pressure to act and to show that they really respect all of us equally.
Yeah, you mentioned Charlie Hebdo, and I mean this was a global campaign. Everybody watched it. Everybody turned into international news networks. In fact, you didn't even have to turn into an international news network. You just watched your local network, and you saw the outrage that was sparked from the world. And yet, in our back garden, here in our backyard, there are wars. There are people being killed savagely on a daily basis. We don't give those attention. Why? What is the difference? Because also the people working perhaps at Charlie Hebdo, not bringing down any significance. I think the conversation we need to really reflect here is not the fact that we're putting other lives ahead of others. It's just, why do some events get more prominence and others don't? I mean, at the same time when Charlie Hebdo was happening, there was a major incident that happened here in Africa, and that hardly got any coverage. What is this? How do we get the attention of the world?
I think as Africans, we need to take responsibility and take our own issues forward. Not expect, of course, we expect international community to support us because our countries are signatories to some of these international agreements. But as Africans, we need to show solidarity and take up our own issues. We should have, as Africans, come up with our own active campaigns. Kenyans who are in South Africa, the diaspora community, everyone who's here, the academic. It was only the University of Cape Town students that I saw who observed a moment of silence in remembrance of the 148 who were killed in Kenya. But nobody else has been saying anything or doing much. So I think for us as Africans, we also need to talk about our own issues, call our own leaders and the international institutions to account and to support us. Otherwise, if we wait for them, we'll get so disappointed. They're not doing much to support us in any way, and it's really disappointing. So I think the media, our media in Africa and in South Africa, working with civil society and academia, we can do much, and the diaspora community, we need to work together and talk about our issues.
Indeed. Well, like you say, we can't expect the world to do it for us. We need to do it for ourselves and just focus more attention on. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the program and talking about a very important issue, and an issue I'm sure you've got views on. If you'd like to write to us, please do. We'd love to hear from you at Morning Live SABC. Litlhare Rabele, who is the South African representative from the Southern African Liaison Office. Thank you very much for talking to us. I must say, when I went over to America and we were having a look at the World Trade Center and they built that monument, one of the most moving things about it is not necessarily the monument, but it is the name of every single person that was killed in that attack. And that is moving because you actually stop there for a second, you look at those names and you put a face to it and you realize that these are individuals and we need to do the same thing. All right, let's take a break.